The Green New Deal is a big chunk of the Green Platform, but of course, there's a lot more things. Again, lots to get into. So this is just a few bullet points that maybe you don't know is in the Green Party platform, part of our message. We support the single-payer healthcare, which is usually known as Medicare for all. We support a universal basic income and a federal jobs guarantee. That's all part of the Green New Deal too. That would help set, a living wage, really even a thriving wage baseline, making sure that all the workers are taken care of, with a just transition. That as we're moving away from fossil fuels and all, those workers can be moved into, green industry and things like that, so that they're taken care of. We support reparations for Black and Indigenous, genocide, slavery, and then even the effects of Jim Crow that laws that go into today. There's a lot of systemic racism in the criminal court system, for example. And so all of this has to be addressed through some sort of reparations process that's kind of community-led. There's the ending the war on drugs, which includes decriminalizing and legalizing cannabis. That's a big thing that gets talked about, and it's becoming more of an issue today as more and more states legalize it, but it's still not legal at the federal level. It causes a lot of complications for things, and that should be taken care of. And of course, that means also releasing people from prison. We have this weird situation right now where it's legal at the state level, and if you have the money to buy the medical license or whatever, you can use it, but people are still serving these, lifelong prison sentences for being previously convicted of it, and that's just completely unjust. The Green Party is an anti-imperialist party, so we stand up against wars and military action. We promote, peace and one of our 4 pillars, right? Peace and diplomatic solutions, and that includes, slashing the military budget so we can promote more peace initiatives instead of military things, and that also includes working toward dismantling nuclear weapons, because after climate change, nuclear weapons are probably the biggest threat to humanity. That at any point, someone in the U.S. or Russia or wherever can just start throwing nuclear weapons and cause all kinds of problems. And we have to be able to diplomatically de-escalate that and work to fix it.
I don't know who said it, but someone in the U.S. government said that first use of nukes against Russia regarding Ukraine was not off the table.
Yes, yeah, that's a current event thing, right?
Yeah, that was today or yesterday. And the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists has us closer than ever to doomsday. And the other thing with anti-imperialism, Michael Shin just said what I was going to say, right? These are all intersectional problems.
Yes.
The U.S. military is the single largest polluter in the world. Right, there are industries that pollute more than they do, that add more emissions. But if we're talking one body, the largest emitter in the world is the U.S. military. So one of the biggest blows that we can make, to the climate crisis and kind of redirecting things is to majorly cut back our military. One thing I learned during the campaign, I started doing some research. There are 3 times as many nuclear reactors on Navy ships as there are in commercial production in the United States. There's 180 nuclear reactors on naval ships. All of it's got to be decommissioned, right? That's a disaster waiting to happen. The last time we were in a real large-scale naval war, we lost ships like that. What happens when a nuclear carrier goes down in the Pacific Ocean? We don't know. So these are all very intersectional issues that, really cut across. We're anti-imperialist for a lot of reasons.
Yes. Yeah. It all relates back to the key values. All of these things are intersectional, and we kind of have to take all these positions, right? It's a matter of consistency, that if you start to address one issue, you have to also look at these other issues, because they're all so deeply connected to each other. So anti-imperialist party. And the last, I think, major bullet point, and again, there's a lot more in the platform, so check it out. But we, of course, want democracy reforms and election reforms. We want to support more grassroots democracy. Municipalities, you should be able to meet in assembly, kind of like Chris was talking about in Amsterdam. You should be able to meet in assembly with your neighbors and make a lot more decisions on your own at the local level. And then when we do have these elections for delegates at state and national level and things like that. They've got to be fair to everyone. They've got to not only protect the right to vote, but the right to run for office, to give people a choice on the ballot. So there's got to be equitable ballot access that's easy, that actually allows people to run for office, equitable, media access and things like that, so people hear your message. And then, of course, things like ranked choice voting with proportional representation, make sure that those elected bodies actually look like and represent the people that they're supposed to represent, and that people can express their preferences the way they actually feel, instead of being afraid because of spoiler effects or lesser evil and things like that. They should be able to vote for what they want and not what they're afraid of.
Plus, one thing that's not mentioned here is campaign finance reforms.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised it's not there. That was an oversight.
I just saw some stats. I think it was from Americans for Tax Progress. But 9% of the donations in 2020 to the presidential campaigns came from 661 billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
The amount that they donated was outrageous, just completely, just wow. I mean, almost 10% of donations came from 661 people in a country of 300 million. So that's a huge part of it. I will say one thing that happens in Illinois, we have this very rare moment of democracy, and they're called township meetings, and they happen once every 2 years. You collect 15 signatures to get a question on the ballot. If your question is one of the top 3, that means it's going to be on the general election ballot. It's a non-binding referendum. In Illinois, we don't really have binding referendums. But it's this moment where, and Greens across Illinois are organizing to get questions about the Green New Deal, questions about, emissions, questions about Medicare for all on these ballots, because it's this rare moment when people can actually put it on the ballot and get a vote, and we can see and we can organize around our issues. We need more of those. Like, it shouldn't be this rare thing that's only for a non-binding referendum, right? It should be for real decisions in all of our communities.
Yeah, definitely. So more public campaign finance, and then more of participatory democracy in these assembly meetings, and being able to put things on the ballot via initiative and referendum. Those things do exist in many states, although not all of them. The rules for them vary. In Pennsylvania, we can do initiatives and referendum at the state and county level, but not at the local, municipal and county level, but not at the state level. Some states do have that option. Of course, it's more complicated. But those are ways to get involved in politics without necessarily running for office yourself. So there's many tools that we can use to build the green movement. All right. So that's just kind of some highlights of what the Green Party platform looks like. There's, of course, a lot more details, and feel free to check the Green Party website about that. But hopefully this
75 pages long.
Yeah, hopefully this gives you some sense of some things that the Green Party supports that especially kind of set us apart from any other party. Look at this slide. You don't see Republicans, especially not Republicans, but even Democrats. You don't see any of them talking about any of this kind of stuff.
I'll say, as the social media director during the campaign, a lot of these were trigger issues, even for progressives. When we started talking about reparations, all of a sudden, we'd get pushback from sections of, ex-Dem progressives. When we started talking about open borders, all of a sudden we'd start getting pushback. When we started talking about BDS in Palestine, right? When we started talking about liberatory issues, we got pushback even from within the progressive base. So it's these issues are, some of them are very majoritarian, but some of them are way outside the bounds of what mainstream parties are talking about. Chomsky talked about there's a lot of discourse within the allowable scope. And these are very much outside the allowable scope of political open borders are unless you're a Republican yelling it at a Democrat because you don't understand that they build the wall too. That's the only time you ever that it's allowed to talk about open borders. But that's something that, reparations, ending the war on drugs, these are things that the Greens have been there on for BDS for a long time, on these liberatory issues, and they're a place where we really stand out from the other offerings. Even the other major third party in the libertarians isn't there on most of these issues. And when they are there on these issues, it's not for the right reasons.
Right.
Like when they're with us on open borders, it's not for the same reason. They want an exploitable worker pool. We want to let workers move like capital moves. So they're antithetical reasons how we end up there.
Yeah.